We are learning lesson 3, and we will begin, as always, with practicing the alphabet and the aerobic vowels, I call them, my vowel aerobics. We're going to have the alphabet. We're not going to be able to use the cheating letters for much longer. We're going to take away those words underneath, but for now, we'll keep doing it. Remember that you're going from right to left, and everyone can see what I'm sharing. You can see my alphabet song. So we're going to sing. Aleph, bet, vet, Aleph, bet, vet, Gimel, Dalet, hey, Gimel, Dalet, hey, whoops, sorry, too much. Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Khaf, Yud, Kaf, Khaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Pefe, Samech, Ayin, Pefe, Tzadi, Kufresh, Tzadi, Kufresh, Shin, Sin, Tav, Ba-ba-da-ba-dum, Shin, Sin, Tav, Ba-ba-da-ba-dum. So those are the consonants, and we're going to go backwards so that we can get to your vowel aerobics. So I'm pulling it from here. You should still be able to see it. Chat with me if you're not seeing it. So we're going to look at the vowel aerobics. If you have a line underneath your consonant, you're going to stretch up and say, ah. If you look like this, you're going to say, ah. This one, you're going to say, e. And this one, you're going to say, e. And this one, we've got 3 points. 1, 2, 3, eh. This one, same sound, but 2 points. 1, 2, eh. Now we're zooming down the tube slide and we're going, ooh. Mr. Vav is up at bat. The pitcher pitches it into his stomach. And this whole blue thing makes up the vowel that sounds like ooh. Mr. Vav is up at bat and the pitcher pitches it over his head and he says, oh. And sometimes you're only going to see the ball going over the head, and that's still going to be an O. And then we have the sad misunderstood vowel, O. And then we go below the line. And below the line, we have the non-standard vowel stuff. We have a resting schwa, sounds like this. We have a moving schwa, sounds like this, very gentle. We have these composite vowels. We have one that sounds like this, ah. We have one that sounds like this, eh. And we have one that sounds like this, oh. And then just for fun, we have some diphthongs. We have the oi, we have the I, and we have the a. And we've practiced our vowels. And then we go back and we can come up here and you can get to these lessons. They magically appear with an underline as soon as the lesson exists, which is sometime before Wednesday. Lesson 3. These are the letters we're going to be learning. Look how colorful they are. I'm going to call up the text. And I actually have another version of the text I'm going to use later if we get to the review, because somebody recommended that maybe we can take away some of the trope marks as we're practicing. The trope marks might be distracting for some people. I'm leaving it here because this is a text from Torah. So you will probably be seeing it as a text from Torah, and then it will have the trope marks in it. But for now, we're going to leave this as is. So we have, so far we've been able to read Bereshit bara Elohim, Bereshit bara over here, Bereshit bara, and then Elohim et hashamayim, which loosely means, and you do not have to know what it means. All you have to know is how to sound it out. In the beginning, God created the skies, and now we're going to get to something else. These are the letters. The ones that are down here are the new letters, and we're starting with a lesson right here. Hopefully you can see it. All right, so we're going to start off as usual with being able to draw the letters, because I feel like if you can draw them, it makes you remember them better. So I'm going to make 2 boxes, one for the cursive. They're supposed to be identical or similar, but I'm going to make one for block and one for cursive. This one's an easy one to do. We're going to make this color. Let's pick a color that you can see. So this one I like to call the very narrow, very straight vav. So if this is the full size of a letter, this one's going to take up like half of a block, maybe half, maybe even less than half. It's going to go like this. That's the very narrow, very straight vav. We already know it for a few reasons. We've seen it as Mr. Vav is up at bat in the vowels when there's a dot going over it or when there's a dot going into it. But in those cases, it is not the consonant at all. It is only a vowel because the consonant sounds like, and you already can guess because the name of the vowel starts with the consonant sound that the vowel makes, except in this case, imagine that you're making your lips shape into a W sound. But instead of making it sound like a W, you're making it sound like a V. So you're going something like V, V. Does anybody say it like that in Israel? The Yemenites do. Maybe a few other people do. Very few people do. Most people will make it sound like a V, where you take your teeth and the top teeth and put it on the bottom, like a V. But this isn't exactly. This is kind of more related to a W than it is to a V. If your last name were Weiss, then you would put 2 vavs, and that would be how you'd make a W. Think about it, W. Ooh. Anyway, that's officially a vav, is officially a V, but as I said, almost nobody's going to pronounce it like that. Almost everyone will pronounce it like a V. But it's going to come up often. You're going to see it in lots and lots of things because, I mean, look how many times it comes here. And you will notice that so far, every time you're seeing it, it's at the beginning of a word. Because when we take this, mostly the V with an vowel, when we take this and we put it at the beginning of a word, prefix it to the word, so we're attaching it to the beginning, it means and, A-N-D. It's a conjunctive. It means and. Sometimes it's translated as other things. It is a conjunction. Sometimes it might be translated as then, but and other things, but it means and. In this case, it also means and, but it's got the other vowel because it turns into that vowel when you have commonly paired things. So I'm going to clear all these. I'll make another box for me to be able to show you what the cursive looks like because I almost forgot about that, but this thing got kind of busy. So I'm going to show you what the cursive looks like. I'm going to make a new color box so that it looks a little different. There's my box. Now, the vav, when we looked at it with the block, and you'll notice that I made mine with... I made it with a hook that kind of goes, whoops, straight over, not the way they're doing it where it's kind of sideways over. But when I'm writing it in cursive, all I'm going to do is from the top of the line to the bottom, I'm going to make it a little bit of a curve, not curve, but a slant. It's going to be a straight line that's just at a little bit of a slant. Cursive always goes at a slant, and there's cursive. So that's the cursive vav. You know that you can always get to these letters by going back to, take you back over. Well, you know what, let's do this. I'll leave 2 windows open. This was going to supposed to be for the next class, but let's do this so I can show it to you because the main adult education resources page, because I think it's easier if we're bouncing back and forth from here. I've cleaned up some of these links and you can get to each of these things from here. But if I come to this one and you use this link here, it may be a little bit easier to see all the ones on the bottom here, but you see you see that, well, that vav is not very good. I don't like, it's not at a slant. But you can see a little bit bigger. So in this case, you know, if you clicked on it, you'd hear it, the program will say it for you, but I'm going to say it for you instead. Let's practice. When it is a consonant, you can tell that it's a consonant because it has a vowel under it. When it's a part of the vowel, so for example, and I'm making these really thick still, but when it's part of the vowel, It's going to be like that, and you're going to have a thing in it, and it's going to be the only thing there. And we'll look at examples of that again once we get to the end of this practice. So we're going to practice this, turning myself back into a pointer. So we have va, va, or if you really want to practice like fun and do va, va, ve, ve, vi, vi, vo, vo, vu, and this is a great example. So if you see here, you've got the one dot and the yud. This thing is these two parts together, that is the vowel. This does not have a consonant status at all anymore. This O, that is the vowel. It doesn't have consonant status anymore. So this says vo, and this says vo, and this here is a dot in it. That whole thing is the vowel. It does not have consonant status anymore. So this is vu, and this is vu, and this is v. And as I pointed out, when you have the vav with a moving schwa under it, it will mean and sometimes you're going to see it like this. And I'm going to show that to you again from the beginning. So we're in two different places at the same time. If I show it to you like, will it get bigger? Did I put it in there? Or you get to, no, all you get to see is the video, which I just made, by the way. I just made the video, but that's the second lesson. So that's not even a good one for you. That's bad. Let's go back to here. I have to fix that link. And I have to fix that link. Going back to here. This one is an because these two things are commonly paired. It's kind of like bread and butter. I don't know if you notice that if you say things that are commonly paired, like salt and pepper or bread and butter, or pick anything that often gets paired, in English, we tend to make the sounds smaller. So instead of saying bread and butter, you kind of say n with an apostrophe all over the place because you've got just the n left from the and. And so it tends to get smaller. In Hebrew, in order for make the words flow better, instead of like bread and butter goes to bread and butter, in order for us to make it flow better, instead of having a we're going to have it say ah. So tohu vavohu, which we don't know how to say this one yet, but commonly paired words often will have a larger vowel sound instead of a smaller vowel sound, just so that it flows better. So we're going to be practicing, you'll see that this and this, as I already showed you, are part of what's left of the sentences that are part of lesson 3. Try this. Let's practice reading these words. I'm going to make them big enough for you to see. So the way to say and he saw is v'ra'a, v'ra'a. Verbs usually have 3 root letters. The resh, aleph, hey is the 3 root letters for seeing. And the vav at the beginning is the and, the prefix to the beginning. V'ra'a looks like one word, but in English we would translate it as 2 words. V'ra'a. I hope that you're able to sound out these things. This one, hopefully you see a similar pattern. We have 3 root letters. This is an aleph, the mem, the resh, and we're adding the vav at the beginning with the moving shva. So that's prefixed on, and that means and. So to say and he said, we would say v'amar, v'amar. And I want to point out this particular vowel pattern for anybody who's not in their very first time of learning Hebrew. You may see this when you'll recognize it a lot. If you see a pattern where you're doing this with your arms and this with your arms, I call that the yay verb, because when you look up a word in a dictionary, as if anybody has to look up words in dictionaries anymore, because you take out your Google Translate and you just say the word and out pops the translation, or you type it in and out pops the translation. That's something we should probably show you how to do at some point. But if you were to look it up in a dictionary and you wanted to say, how do I say I said? It's not going to show you how you say I said. You're going to only be able to find the 3rd person masculine singular version of the verb. And the 3rd person masculine singular of the verb, past tense, is the core. The 3 root letters is what you're going to see, and it's going to have the yay verb pattern. So this is a good thing to look at, recognize. And look, we have the exact same pattern right here. See patterns? So this is, and he protected. We have the v, the and then we have a sh, and then the missile mountain mem with the bottom missing and the missile. We have ma and rish. Vishamar means and he protected. Vishamar. Do you have to remember any of those words? No, you do not. You just have to be able to sound them out. So the next letter we're going to be learning. This is unusual for me to start with final letters. And I know we already learned the final letter shape of the mem, which was the marshmallow mem. There are some things about this consonant that are more normal as a final consonant, and there are some things that are just weird. This is one of the bottom 3 letters. In other words, if you ask me which were the least common consonants in all of Hebrew, this is one of them. But it comes up in the very first day of Scripture, so we're going to have to be talking about it. This is one of those 5 consonants that has a different shape when it comes at the end of the, sorry, all right, wait. We had a question. I'm confused as how to the thing is only a vowel if it has the v sound with a vowel sound. We're going to have to look at that. We're going to have to see which one you're talking about. Let's get to it. Maybe more exercises as we're going through. We'll make it clear. If not, let's get back to that. So this consonant is not a very common one. You're not going to see it a lot, but it does come up in the first day of creation. And it sounds like, and it's also not a letter that feels comfortable for an English speaker to be a separate consonant. Just like sh as a separate consonant seems a little bit weird because we're used to it being 2 consonants that come together to make one consonant sound, to make one sound. In this, that's the same thing here. This is going to be kind of like a TS or a TZ sounds, and that's one consonant, even though in English it isn't. In this case, it's going to look like this. I like to make it like this for the block one. And you'll notice that I said it's like a guy who's waiting to toss the pizza in the air. I'm sure I have told you that I was the assistant manager at the kosher pizza and falafel place in Albany, New York. And I learned how to throw pizzas in the air. So this is me with my pizza, about to throw it in the air. And we get that pizza sound, that's a sound in the middle of the pizza. So that's me throwing the pizza in the air. But you'll notice that if this is the bottom line, I better take some of those away. Take away my pizza. No, put that guy back. If we need all of this for the final shape of the tzadi, there's, oh, cool. That was very helpful. I'm so glad I did that. Let's just do that. And then this comes down. No, that's not what I meant to do. It goes below the line. You'll notice that it drops down below the line. So far, we have seen a letter that goes above the line, and that was the lamed. Every final shape of letters go below the line, except for the mem. The mem, the final mem, stays inside the box. It fills up the whole box. The final tzadi, that's the second of the 5 that we are learning, the final tzadi goes below the line. And you can already see here, you can, I got to get rid of these guys. Wait, get rid of them. And clear. You can already see here that it's coming twice, but that's because the word repeats itself here. The last word of the first sentence is haaretz, the land. We knew that. In the beginning, God created tashamayim, the skies, ve'et, and also, here it comes, haaretz, the land. And then the very first word of the second sentence is ve'haaretz again. I suggest that you're hearing a lot of repetition because we're seeing the creation. It's a baby, it's an infant, and babies love to have repetition. You want to do it again and again and again, whether it's playing the same things or singing the same things or watching the same movies or hearing the same books or playing patty cake over and over and over again, whatever it is, they're going to want to do it over and over. I want to show you this box because this is absolutely one of my all-time favorite letters to draw. I think that I showed you how to draw the letter Lamed, which goes something like this. The Lamed, even in cursive, goes above the line. This one, the letter Tzadi, is going to be, there's two different versions of it. And they start off with a letter Lamed, but then you add to it. So one Tzadi is going to go like this. It scoops all the way up. It's a fun one. And another Tzadi is going to go like this, where it's going to go back through the hole. We're making our pretzel Tzadis. That's really long. I wouldn't make it go that long. But it's really hard to draw with a mouse. So watch the, Carol is right, Shomer, Shabbat is guarding Shabbat. So watch the video, the one that's from, here, let's find my spotlight again. If you go to here, you click on there, it shows you at Tzadi. It's got practice, and I'll explain to you why we do that kind of a practice. There's a show me video lesson, and it shows me trying to make a pizza. And it will show you how to make, the video shows you how to make a Tzadi. So because of the fact that and you saw this already for the final mem, because of the fact that it's a final shape that comes at the end of a word, we have to show it at the end of the word. So I'm showing it at the end of the word with all of the vowels. So we have ats, ats, ets, ets, eats, eats, ots, ots, oots, and oots. We're not going to have a resting schwa version of this because it is already at the end of a word. There's not going to, I mean, a moving schwa, because it's at the end of a word. You're not going to start a new syllable and then just stop. And let's take a look at the words, our practice words. You just saw that. Why did he do that? All right. So there's some good words that have a final tzadi in them. And you can see the positioning better like this. The word for he ran is rats, like, you know, the thing that you keep in the back of your refrigerator. It kind of rots in the back of the refrigerator. This is not that. This is he ran. Hu rats. He ran. And then we have this word, which is related to the word that's in the Torah portion that we've got here. This is two es. One is under an aleph. One is under a rounded resh. So we have Eretz. Eretz is land. You may have heard of Eretz Yisrael, is the land of Israel, as opposed to Am Yisrael, which is the people Israel, as opposed to the guy whose name is Yisrael. But Eretz Yisrael means land of Israel. We saw in our text here, let's see if we can zoom in on it. Yes, we can. We saw that the word for land, the land, is haaretz, because every time you add a the to the word land, it's going to switch from eretz to aretz, haaretz. But you'll notice that the consonants are the same. And here we go again. Let's see, land, eretz. And I already told you, for anyone who has been, if you're playing with the prayer book or other words, you know, anytime you have a word that has two es together, the accent's always going to be on the first syllable. So eretz, not eretz, eretz. Almost everything else you do is going to have the accent on the last syllable. And this is the word that we saw in the Torah portion. We have ha, it's whole here, hanging, hey, with an a underneath it, ha. We have the open in every direction aleph with an a underneath it, ha-a. We have the rounded resh with the three dots under it, which is an e, and then the final tzadi, which is a ts at the end. So we have haaretz. And this one, we're going to accent on that syllable too, and not at the end. Haaretz is the land. The key thing is being able to sound out those letters. Okay, so far, a few letters. Crazy that we're learning the final tzadi right here, but there it is. This one, I'm going to say you probably already know because you hopefully have sung the Aleph Bet song only 4 million times since I met you. And if that's the case, then you know that the very first line, even if you don't remember anything else, even if you do it with your eyes closed, hopefully you remember Aleph Bet Vet. And so if you can remember Aleph Bet Vet, then what comes after Bet is Vet, and there it is. It's the Vet. I'm going to tell you a secret. I think you may be old enough to hear this, and that is there is no such thing as a letter Vet. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of our imagination. What happens here is that we have essentially a bar on the bottom, a base that goes beyond, and no ball. We have a void or a vacuum in the middle, but it reminds us of a bet. If we had a dot in it, it would be a bet. We have a bar on the bottom, a bar that goes beyond, and no ball. We have a void or a vacuum in the middle, and so it sounds like V. In cursive, it's going to go just like the bet did. It's going to be zoop, zoop, but no dot. We're not putting a belly button in it. We're not putting a ball in it. It's going to be a V. So the bet and the vet are the same letter. They just act in different ways in different parts of a word. But you don't have to believe that. You don't even have to hear me for saying that, la, 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 la. All you have to know is that if you see this without a dot in it, just sound it out as a V. You do not have to know that it is the same consonant as the vet. And it just is, where is it in the word? In our text here, it comes one time. I have to change what my cursor looks like, or I can't see it. It comes only one time. This may be very confusing. I can understand that. These two dots are a trope mark telling us that the accented syllable is here. This dot is the vowel that's telling us what to say. So let's take a look. We'll practice these sounds. There it is. Although it's got a little bit better helper, but we're going to sound them out. So there's a void or a vacuum here. So with an A under it. So it's va, va, ve, ve, vi, moving over, v. Now, the truth was the version we saw in the text, I got to get rid of these guys. Sorry about that. That's coming everywhere. The version we saw doesn't even have the vav with it. See, it's just the O dot without the vav on there, but that's okay. It's the same vowel. So this says vo, this says vo, this says vu, this says vu, and this says v, because we can have a moving schwa underneath of v. It's not at the end of a word. We good? No questions for this one yet? Let's get some words in. Let's go backwards on these since we're already here. This one says, that's a lot of stuff, a lot of dots. This looks like a vav, but it is not. When I see an u at the beginning of a word, and I've said it before and I'll say it a bunch of times, when I see an u, it's got the pitching into his belly. When I see a u at the beginning of a word, it is not a vu. It is never a vu. The only way I'm going to get a vu out of that is either with this, that would be a vu, or this, that would be a vu. But this by itself, that can only be an u. And the only time ever that Hebrew words can start with a vowel is this. And this is another way of saying and, A and D. It comes before certain kinds of consonants or vowels. Limited number, but we'll talk about that one day. But this u means and it will come before a vet. And so here's a vet. See, a bar on the bottom base goes beyond, but there's a void in the middle. And so with an a, so this says uva. This is a teeny tiny yud with a dot in it. That dot shouldn't scare you. There are only a few consonants where if I put a dot in it, which is also called a dagesh, that it will change the pronunciation. In this case, it doesn't change the pronunciation. Anybody who was in my class last night, thank you. I appreciate that. Technology has been fixed, but this dot will double the consonant, but for most speakers, you wouldn't know the difference, that whether it's doubled or not. But Italian speakers would know. So, but for all practical purposes, please do not worry about that. Just know that it's a yud, and you pronounce it like a yud, which is the teeny tiny letter. It sounds like a Y. And this is the vowel for it, the O, and that's a marshmallow mem. So if we say uvayom, that means on that day, and on that day, or and in that day. And prepositions are funny. Try to translate those. This word has a hole hanging here, and this one is just hanging, and that's an e. And this is the bar on the bottom, base goes beyond, but there's a void or a vacuum in the middle. The vowel is this, the dot with the yud. That's a vowel. It's not a yud, that's a consonant. And then the aleph is part of that whole thing. We need the aleph as part of the verb, but it's not going to have any sound in this at all. So this word is hevi. Hevi means he brought. Hevi. And all you have to be able to do is sound that out. If I put that in front of you, would you be able to sound it out? Can you sound this one out? Take a look at it. That's supposed to be a teeny yud. Takes up way too much space in my font, my word processor, but that's a teeny yud with an a. That's the vet. There's no ball or belly button in there with an o dot. And that's a silent aleph. So we have yavo. Yavo means he will come. Yavo, future tense. Yavo. So far, so good. Ooh, I wouldn't have written that. That says Yehia Adonai. I wouldn't write Adonai in a thing, but that's okay. Now I can't erase my screen. Gee, thanks, Carol.
I was trying to do, Venet Amar, I forget what it was.
Vayom hahu, Vayom hahu. Yeah, Adonai echad. I see it. I know, but I wouldn't have written Adonai. What I would have done instead.
What would you write?
In a chat. Yes. And it's fine. It's my mishigas has to do with my mishigas.
What would be better?
But I would have done, if you really need to show the 4 letters, then I sometimes do this where I have like a dash in the middle so that I'm showing that it's not it's not all put together. So I've made it a distinct word. Or as you know, I write usually hey with a whoops. You're supposed to be in Hebrew still. I would write hey with a chupchik. Whoop, that chupchik's supposed to be on the other side, but it's not cooperating. But that's what I would do. It keeps turning into English for me, but that's how I would write it. Or I should have shown that to you on here. I can type in here too. Sorry, I can type on here if that's my word. And if I'm writing in Hebrew, come on, write in Hebrew. Turn yourself into a mouse and write in Hebrew. Then, will it let me do this? Yeah, I wouldn't, because we're supposed to not take God's name in vain. So right. I would make a dash, yud hey, vav hey, something like that. And you'll notice that in my word processor, they're showing you a very straight line. They're not showing you the little chupi chiki thing up at the top. Or sometimes I would just do a hey with a chupchik, which could be, maybe they'll let me do it like this. Nope, that's going far away. Anyway, otherwise I can't erase it. I'll be taking God's name in vain. Let's take a look at the next letter though. Let's not worry about that. You're not zapped. Nobody's getting punished. We're all good. I'm turning my Hebrew into English again. I hope I'm not. I'm turning my Hebrew into English again. Move away. Come on, Hebrew, baby English. Okay, never mind. Next letter. Next letter is what I like to call the none of the above. Because, and I will show it to you again, I'll make myself a little box. We'll make our box. Because so far we have seen a few letters that look something like this. We've seen the letter that does this. Starts with the same core, but if it's attached to the top left and there's a tail at the bottom left, this one is attached to the top left, but there's no tail at the bottom left. If it did that, that would be a tav. It's not a tav. We also have seen the hey where the hey is whole here and hanging, but this one does not have a hole. It's attached at the top. So we are clearing those again so you could see what I'm trying to do here. This one has to be attached at the top, but there's no tail. So I call it the none of the above, partially because it has a sound that's not like any of the above letters in that you will ever see in English ever. The way to write it in cursive before we move out of this mode, I'll give you a box you can see. The way to write it in cursive is kind of fun, not surprising. It starts off like a resh, just like the other ones did, and then you just make the line going down like that. So it looks a lot like the block. Sometimes the block is more angular. Sorry about the angle. I'm making it go down this way. It's supposed to be straight. There you go. Chet, that's the print. Ooh, that looks terrible. Don't do that. That looks almost like a top. Don't do that. Go straight down. Pretend you're not a mouse. Go straight down. Or the cursive is going to be rounder. And that. Watch the videos. They will show it to you better than what my mouse can do. I apologize for my mouse stuff. And then we're going to go through. This is the way we pronounce the chet, by the way. It's a guttural letter. I like to call it the wet H. Imagine that you're saying, you're fogging up your glasses, let's say. So it's like, it's not a which is a khaf. It's more like, if you only have one chach and you use the same chach for both of them, that's fine. But this is more like fogging up a mirror. It's supposed to be the beginning of words like chala, and it's supposed to be like Chanukah. But a lot of people will say Chanukah with a thick ch. That's not what this is. This is supposed to be gentle. I wanted to point out that when you see a chet at the end of a word, only at the end of a word, and you see this vowel, that vowel, which is called a patach, so you'll see that in the instructions. But if you see it with that vowel, then it does this thing where instead of saying lu, ha, which is what it looks like, you have to say, it's called a furtive patach, which I love saying because furtive means sneaky. It's a sneaky patach. You have to say it first. So instead of saying lu cha, only at the end of words, only when the chet is at the end of a word, not other letters, with that ah vowel, you're going to say luach. You're going to say the ah and then the chet. That doesn't happen a whole lot, but you watch for it. And sometimes when I say watch for it, it may be easier for you to listen for them than expect them to show up. They're not going to show up a lot. Let's do some of this. This one says ha. This one, also we're at the end of a word, oops, says ha. This one says che. This one says che. This one says chi. Sorry about that. This one says chi. This one, which is in our text, says cho. Sorry about that. This one says cho. And this is considered a guttural letter because it's a very quiet letter. Remember, I told you it's more like a wet H than a ch. The ch is not a quiet letter, but this is a guttural, which means it's a quiet letter. It's an almost silent letter. So when we are practicing with a moving schwa, you can put a moving schwa, but not by itself. It needs a helper vowel, an auxiliary vowel. So all you have to know is that if you see this combination, it's going to sound like cha. And if you see this combination, it's going to sound like che. And if you see this combination, it's going to sound like cho. And one day you'll be able to figure out when you will see it and predict it. But for today, just know how to say it when you see it. For example, in this word, we have the Missile Mountain Mem with an a, ma. We have a shin with an e, ma, shi. And then we have a furtive patach, which means that you see the a, but you see the chet at the end of the word. So you're not supposed to say Mashiach, you're supposed to say Mashiach. Mashiach. I intentionally gave it to you for that reason, so that it's a word that you might have heard before. When I was growing up, Lubavitch put on bumper stickers on cars that said, "We want Mashiach now." Anyway, friends, really good word to be able to say, like Shalom Chaverim, Shalom Chaverim, Shalom, Shalom, Lahitraot, Lahitraot, Shalom, Shalom. You can read all of those letters now. And I know that they sing that song even at some church camps and stuff. But this one is with an ah sound, that's cha. This is the vacuum void inside vet, chave. Here we have resh with an e vowel, and then the final mem. We're not surprised to see im at the end. That's a plural ending. This is chaverim. Yes. How do you know that it's if this is an ah or it's an o? How do you know? Right now, I'm going to tell you, if it doesn't show a distinction, some books that have vowels will show a distinction. It'll make the bottom longer. I'm going to try to draw my straight lines again. Let's see how well I'm going to do. Sometimes that's your regular kamats. And in my word processor, that's your O. And in some books, this is still the regular kamats right here, the one over here. That's ah, and this is O. And then this is, sometimes it'll be separated and it'll be O like that, or it'll be O like that, or other things. But right now, just know that when it's shorter, you can always guess ah, just always guess ah. Unless you're Marla and you studied Ashkenazic before you got here, then it's always going to be ah, like the A in ball, always. But it's not for us. For us, if you're trying to pronounce it the way it is in Israel, then this is going to be ah, and these are going to be O's. And anytime you have the combination one where it looks like this and this with the two dots, it's always going to be O, always, because it's always the short vowel version. So that one I can tell you will always, always be, even if it looks like this one, it's always going to be O, always, because it is the short vowel version. Did that answer the question? I hope. But what will happen is you'll have some vocabulary words. Once you can see vocabulary words, it's really easy to figure out if it's going to be an A or an O. Like this word, I look at it, I know right away what it has to be. But until you know words, until you've know enough how to sound out the words, please don't worry about it. Just always guess ah, unless I tell you otherwise specifically. If I give you a vocabulary word and I tell you it's an O, but other than that, please always guess ah in words. So this word is the chet, cha, cha, and here's the lamed, and this is the vowel O. It's Mr. Vav playing, and the pitcher pitches it over his head. This is chalo, and then the marshmallow mem, chalom, chalom. So he said 3 words, chalom, chaverim, and Mashiach, perfect. And then we get to the next one, and I expect we may start seeing some people coming on. So this is the last of, it's our last letter for today, but it's also a third final letter, 3 out of 5. And this is the second one that we're doing. When we learn the mem, we learn the regular shape of a mem and the final shape of a mem. For the tzadi, we did not learn the regular shape of a tzadi. I'll give you a hint. If you look at the song, it's not going to show any final letters because they're just giving you names of letters and they're only showing you the other shapes. So you're not going to see the final, you're not going to see a final tzadi, you're not going to see the final mem, and you're not going to see this one, which is a final khaf. So I'm going to show you what this is going to look like if you were drawing it. I hope you're practicing drawing. I'm going to make the box, and this is our box, which reminds me, yes, I did show you how to do the cursor for the last one. So this one, and maybe we'll just start doing it like this. No. It's going to go across, and sometimes you're going to see a little bit of a dingle dangle over here, but it's really not necessary. You just go straight down, but you go straight down, but you go below the line. Straight down below the line. And the other thing that's going to show you that there's a that there's a final Khaf. It's a very cool thing, is that you're going to have a vowel in a final letter. It's the only one that takes a vowel. It's going to be a vowel in the final letter every time you see it at the end of the word. And the vowel is not going to be below the line like this. The vowel is going to be right in the middle of the consonant. So this is still your line, and you're still going to see, oh, that was a terrible idea to do that the same color. This is still your line, and you're going to see either a resting schwa or an kamatz. You're either going to see this or you're going to see that. And I will show you examples of it. You're going to be happy to see it. But first, I'm going to show you how to make a cursive one. It's a little bit fun. Not as much fun as the lamed-based ones. This one is going to go like this. Sorry, that was terrible. One of these days, it's going to be easier to write in this. It's going to come down. Looks a little bit like a question mark. I never noticed how much it looks like a question mark because I try not to think of them as those things. So watch the video, please, about it. Final Khaf. And take that away and practice. So what I did for this one for practice, it's supposed to be a spotlight so that I can, it's supposed to be a spotlight so that I can, there you go, point to things. So this one does, we had a chet. A chet was a soft, it was a wet H, I said. It's like you're fogging up the mirror. This one is one of those thick, clear your throat things. That's the final Khaf. So let's take a look at the final Khaf and how we practice it. We're going to practice it like this. And I think that, so what I did was I alternated. So this is practice, no, I didn't, sorry. This is ach, ech, ich, och, and uch. But I do have, I think, some exercises that show you. Nope, all right, I'll show you how to practice the other one. So this one is, you've seen this word. If you know any blessings in Hebrew, it starts with, every bracha starts with baruch. So you have a bar on the bottom, base goes beyond with a ball in the belly, and an ah. You have a rounded resh, and then Mr. Vav is up at bat, pitching it into his stomach is an u. And then we have a final Khaf. And you'll notice this is a good example of seeing that the shva is in the middle of the letter and not below the line. So this is baruch. And you have to say that at the end of the word. Baruch means blessed or praised. And then we have, if I want to say your piece, or if I want to ask you how you are, I need this one. I need to use this word. But I have a shin with a moving shva. So that's sh. I have a lamed with an o. That's lo, shalo. I have a missile mountain mem with a shva. And then I have a cha at the end. This is showing you where the position of the a is. It is never going to be an o at the end of the word. So it's shlom cha. Shlom cha means your peace. If I want to ask a guy, how are you? I will ask, how is your peace? Ma shlom cha. How are you feeling? Are you in a peaceful state right now? Ma shlom cha. If you want to ask a female, then you would say shin with a moving shva, sh. You have a l with an o, shlo. And then instead of shlom cha, you're going to say shlo mech. And then it just ends. So it's shlomech, shlomech. And that's our vocabulary. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about that tells you things. I love the last word of the section that we're doing so far. I love a lot of what we have here, and I don't have enough time to talk about all of it, but so far what we had was in the beginning God created, and then we have Bereshit bara Elohim, in the beginning God created, and then we say Et hashamayim, God created the skies, ve'et haaretz, and the land. And then, as I said, it repeats just like any good children's book is going to do. It repeats words again, ve'haaretz, and the land. And then I want you to notice that what you're hearing in this text is a lot of breathing. That's all there is. There's the Spirit of God. The word for spirit is the same word as breath, and we're going to see it in the next sentence. But I just want you to hear it as we're doing this. Even the tsa feels a little bit like there's just breath going on. Ve'aretz, and then it says hayata. And when you say hayata, all of the air comes out of you when you say it. And then you say tohu, and all of your air comes out. Vavohu, and all of your air comes out. And then we have, so, and the land was, and it says void and unformed, va'aretz hayata tohu vavohu. And then there's this word, the last word that we're going to get for our sentence so far is v'choshech. And this is our double duty dot here, v'choshech. And when you hear the word choshech, it means darkness, and it feels like darkness. It feels like a velvety darkness, choshech. Doesn't it feel like it's comforting, like a velvet could be soft, but also a little bit intimidating? Choshech, because sometimes the night can be kind of intimidating. Choshech, I love that word. And we've got a bunch of information in here. And I think that that kind of covers it. So I want to make sure, I want to see if I can get to the questions that were asked. The plural of chalom, which is a dream, is chalamot. So you want to wish somebody pleasant dreams, you might say chalamot ni'imim, which means pleasant. The plural of chalom is masculine. The plural is chalamot, but it's still masculine. So you say chalamot ni'imim, and or you could say chalamot paz, peaceful dream. That's the way they say it in Israel. So I'm trying to understand. Okay, so the Roberta's question about the underneath the vowel, I'm just telling you, most of the time it's going to be and Vicky, do you want to ask your question? Do you want to unmute and ask the question? Or are we good?
Sure. It was when you were talking about the vav, and you said this is when it's a vowel, but it still sounded like va. So how is that a vowel?
Okay, so yeah, so that wasn't a vowel. So let me just do a new share and let me show you.
Okay, so I'm confused.
Yep, no, it's and that was maybe a bad way of describing it at that point. So when it's acting like a consonant, it will have vowels under it, whatever the vowel is going to be. Come on, give me a, well, that's fun. Let's see this. So that could be a consonant, and it will sound like va. When it's acting like a vowel, it's going to be this, and it's, I can't do I have to scribble. That's an oo. There is no v at all in that oo. Do you see what I'm saying? And when it's acting like a vowel, it could be like this with the o dot over it. And then it's an o. It's not, there's no v at all. Does that make sense? There's no consonant at all. So if I had something like this, which is what I was showing, then I have the consonant vav, that's here. But I also have a vowel where the vowel is made up of two parts of the vowel and the dot, but it doesn't, made up of two parts, the vav, which is sometimes a consonant, and the dot, but it has no consonant status any longer. It's just ooh, that's all there is. So this is vu going across here, vu. And this one, when Mr. Vav is up.
Oh, okay. So there's two vavs, and right, that's why exactly. It was vu.
So
okay.
That's why it was a vu. If I'm at the beginning of a word, whatever the word is, and I see the oo vowel at the beginning, it does not, oh, this is the funniest thing. It doesn't let me do that. There's no consonant status at all for that. It's not going to sound like vu at the beginning. It's never going to sound like vu at the beginning of a word when you see that. Okay. Say that again. Say that again.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking, uvayom hashvi'i shavat. Oh.
Yep. Every single time. And you're going to see it a lot. You're going to see it in Vahafta. You're going to see it in lots of prayers. All right. Marla, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Can you back up to the word choshech?
Sure. Absolutely. Let me go back to it from here, I guess. Screen one. Whoa. Hello. Oh, here we are. Sorry, you're on screen one. And let's go back to it here. And it was down here. Choshech. Whoa. Right here. It's at the end of this, for example.
But the there's only one dot, which looks like it is making the shin instead of a sin.
Yeah, so we have the V.
Oh,
Can you see
the
it in this
O.
version? So this is V. We call this the double duty dot. So if
Oh.
you look at that chet and you see that it has no vowel, it looks like there's no vowel. We saw this with an aleph, that it looked like the aleph had no vowel, and I told you that it was actually kind of sort of part of the vowel then, like with Bereshit. But a chet is not a vowel letter. A chet has a sound, and it's not part of a vowel thing. So if you see a consonant and it's next to a shin and you don't see any other vowel, then you know that this dot is acting not just as the dot that turns the 3 prongs into a shin, but it's also the O dot that it's fixing to go over, like this dot or this dot. It is a dot that's going over the chet. So it may take a little practice to trust yourself to believe that that's what's happening, but that's what's happening. I have a V, I have a chet, I got to find the vowel for it. That's an O dot. And then I also realize that that shin needs that dot for the shin. So this is v'cho shech. Okay. You're going to have to trust me on it for now, I guess, until you see more. But that dot on a shin can sometimes serve a double duty. If you look at it in the Torah, in a lot of places, like in Moshe, some texts will show the shin separate dot, and sometimes it'll show it as the double duty dot. And I don't know that there's a rhyme or reason to it. It's frustrating to me. My word processor, if I had to write a word in it, it would show as, I'd either have to not type an O, or I'd make the shin just be for both, or it's going to look like 2 dots. There's going to be a dot for the O sound and a dot for the shin sound. I am going to